Hello.
Hello. Alrighty. Um, we may have had a miscommunication with Jenny.
Yeah,
Um,
my fault.
so we're just going to go ahead and proceed.
She may chime in. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
she
we'll
might
see.
join,
Yeah.
but we'll see how it goes. All right. So the first section is entitled, my glasses on, The Needs of a Victim, a Talk with My Guide. What is true sovereignty? Sovereignty is the purest form of freedom. It is the living of an experience without stipulations, so that you may live it as you wish. The experience gives you reason to live it under a set of conditions as a starting point. Living that experience in sovereignty is accepting those conditions as only a starting point, with the intent to expand beyond them. It is a choice to accept that you, life, cannot be contained, and you will endeavor to expand beyond any restriction. Okay, if I haven't accepted that choice, what am I? That would relegate you to a victim. How so? By not accepting that you can expand beyond the conditions that are imposed on you, you are accepting to be contained within the conditions and be duped into living the experience that way. One definition of victim is a person who is tricked or duped. Sovereignty is acknowledging you can expand your experience beyond the conditions at any time you wish. A victim chooses to and live the lie of being contained within those conditions. Okay, how do the mindsets differ while living? Victims see the conditions as a ceiling while maintaining their thoughts and actions under that ceiling. Sovereigns accept the conditions as a floor, using it as a base from which to rise above. Victims will find any reason not to expand above their ceiling, whereas sovereigns look to ways of pushing off their floor. A victim's focus is on needs, and the addressing of those needs affects the feelings of the victim. Needs are demands a victim places on the experience, and a victim's life depends on the meeting of those needs. The focus of sovereigns is to live the experience as they want, rising above needs by their intent to provide for their own experience. Victims feel they need something or someone besides themselves to complete their experience. Sovereigns realize their complete experience is within them, and their intent caters it to their wants. In accepting the limits of their conditions, victims see their external life happening to them, whereas sovereigns see the living of their experience as happening to their environment. Victims look to blame someone or something for the cause of their condition, expecting that condition to continue until that external someone or something changes the condition. Sovereigns assign no blame and look to themselves to change their own condition. Why would we choose to be victims? It became a prerequisite to entering and living in this world for most of you. This offered you the opportunity to experience base living without the majority of your higher abilities and with minimal guidance. The goal was for you to get lost in base living, living as a victim, and then experience the reawakening of your sovereignty and your abilities, and the gratitude and love that would ensue. Okay, so why are we having a difficult time returning to sovereignty? That is due to your embracing of the victimhood of base living. The expanded living of a sovereign requires the release of that victimhood and the acceptance of the responsibility to manage your own experience. This goes counter to the needs of a victim with its focus on lack, the lack of responsibility, lack of guidance, and lack of conscious abilities. Typically, your reawakening would follow your manifesting a catalyst of change, such as a dark night of the soul, D-knots, that would lead into the rebirth of your sovereignty. However, your birth became stuck in the final release of your victimhood, requiring further inducement by way of another D-knots for your species. That final D-knots is in the final stage of being manifested. Once the D-knots is fully underway, all remaining attachments to victimhood will be on full display for a culminating decision to retain victimhood or to choose sovereignty. Okay, so is this part of the event that people keep referring to? It is part of the process, but it is not the event. The event is a follow-on manifestation of the transportation to the world of your sovereignty. Think of it as a planted seed within your species that is growing through this process you are now in, and it will soon blossom to spark a manifestation of all as one. That will be the true birth of your sovereignty. Okay, so are we all to continue being victims until that moment? That is for you to choose. Even if you choose to remain blind to your sovereignty and act as a victim, it doesn't change the fact that you are a sovereign being. It only affects your view of the experience. When you have had enough of the victim experience, you'll open your eyes to the true nature, to your true nature, or at least more of it, and manifest an expanded experience more to your liking. Well, I know I want to exit the victim experience, so why am I not doing so? Your intent still holds on to this view of your world. You still do some things in this view and expect your view to respond as it always has. Opening yourself to more possibilities regularly will further your shift to an alternate view. How are the things like the pandemic and the news related to this? These are your manifestations, even though as a victim, you don't realize it. Your will brings about the instigators of your change based on your readiness, meaning you will see and feel what you need to in order to prepare you for the move and to get you to move. These changes are inducing your rebirth. These manifestations, thus far, have been relatively delicate, producing only minor contractions. At some point, the inducement will be increased to produce the major contractions necessary to begin the next stage of your birth. How accepting you are of this change will determine how difficult your birth is. What do I need to do to prepare for this change? It is need that makes your birth difficult. Release your needs so that you can accept the change. The needs of a victim places restrictions on the experience, confining it to hardship expected by the victim. The solution is need less and want more. Needs are the intent to hold on to what is or has been. Wants are an eye to what can and will be, once the intent is applied there. Allow yourself to release your needs and accept the intent of your will to your wants. Okay, but how do I release my needs? Catch yourself when you need something and then question it. Every need you have is a learned need. Even your need to eat and drink are but learned needs from birth. That was the start of your dependency and the beginning of your need. You could have stopped eating once you were weaned from your mother's milk, but your need for food is reinforced by a system of dependency that pushes your need for it. You are an addict in the process of breaking your addiction to a system that has held you in suspended animation. Any current need that you have is a hold the system has on you. Take any need that you have and just consider the thought of giving it up and observe your reaction. If you believe you are a higher being, you should at least be able to consider giving up that need. If you cannot even consider the thought, That is one hold the system has on you in keeping you at its level. Right now, you are thinking about the three strongest needs a person has: food, water, and sleep. Have you not reduced your food intake below the level you once thought of as minimal? Yes, I did that a few months ago just to see what would happen. And you found that your energy levels remain the same and your weight has stabilized. As for sleep, did you not stay awake for more than a week? Yes, back in college during exam week. And again, you found your energy levels stayed elevated, along with your focus and cognitive abilities, so much so that you aced all your exams. You have already proven to yourself that your need for those two things are not what you were taught. The remaining item, water, is a special case and was always going to be the last of your needs to be released. What other needs do you think you have that you cannot let go of? None that I can think of. Once you need nothing, then you will have everything you need. At that point, you will begin the experience of true sovereignty in pursuit of what you want.
Yep. Mhm. Very good.
All right. So the next one is a little bit longer. It is a dialogue. It is entitled Relax and Let It Happen. Annie, I'll be with you guys in just a moment. You think to Annie and Doug, although Doug has yet to get any of your long distance telepathic messages. Still, you include him in your effort prior to any meeting with them. I got it, Doug's thought exclaims into your head. Whoa, did you just think to me? Your thought goes back to him. Yep, when I got your message that time, I just knew how to respond. Doug thinks back. Annie, can you think a message to me you send out to her? Silence. And then Doug's thoughts intrude. She said no. You respond, okay, I'm blooping over now, which you do into a comfy seat across from Annie and Doug, who are seated in their own. Annie is the first to speak. How is it Slug here can telepathic message you, but I can't? Expecting this, you sigh and answer, this isn't a logic game, Annie. Abilities come online as they are cleared. She challenges, but he's not even a weaver. You respond back, so you think being a weaver grants you some special privilege to these abilities? I just thought, and she pauses. You push her to continue. Go ahead. A heavy sigh escapes her lips as they flutter. And then she continues. No, you're right. I thought being a weaver meant being first to have abilities. I'm just frustrated at my lack of progress. Why is it taking so long? You ask her, taking so long compared to what? She sighs again and then lets it pour out. Compared to you, the Pleiades, the new arrivals, and now him. I spend most of my day meditating, avoiding any distractions. Why? What am I doing wrong? You question her. Who says you're doing anything wrong? Well, then why is my progress stalled? And he blows right past me, she pleads. Annie, this isn't a competition. We all come at this from different starting points with different obstacles to overcome. Only you know what yours are and how to navigate. Excuse me, and how to navigate them. No deity is going to bless you with your abilities because you put in 30 hours of meditation. You are unlocking your abilities from within. If you get stuck, it's up to you to get unstuck. If you would like assistance, other weavers, the new arrivals, and the Pleiades are always available. Doug has availed himself of all their help. Plus, he hits me up at least twice a day. Who have you talked to? Defiantly, she answers, you said this was my challenge. Plus, the others make me feel small. No, Annie, you do that because you think of yourself as small. That is your biggest obstacle. And now you're seeing how it can impede your progress. Or I should ask you, do you see what your biggest obstacle is? She snidely remarks, you don't have to be such a hard ass know it all. You look at her in thought and realization and say, you know what? You're right. I don't. You promptly stand up and bloop out, leaving Doug a thought as you do. Doug pipes up to Annie. I don't think that went the way you wanted it to. Upset now, she pleads, why does he have to be so direct? Doug completes her thought. And right, she continues. Yeah, all the time. Doug pauses and then asks, want to know what I think? Face in her hands, she says, oh, why not? You may as well take a turn. He pauses again for her sake and then proceeds. He can't afford not to be direct and right. He's one of the main weavers for our whole species. The gravity of that pretty much guarantees he doesn't offer his guidance unless he's sure of it. And he doesn't beat around the bush about it. And I know he won't force his views on anyone, especially someone who slams the door in his face. She opens her hands to look at him and states, I did not slam the door in his face. I pushed back from his condescending approach. He stares questioningly at her and asks, you think he was being condescending? You only think that because you were already frustrated and he hit on something you don't want to face. He was only trying to guide you after explaining how you were isolating yourself from assistance and then asking if you could see it. And now you isolate yourself from him, your biggest advocate, and the one person who wants to help you the most. You sure do have a funny way of asking for and receiving help. Still challenging, she responds. He didn't have to belittle me. Incredulously, he questions her. Annie, are you listening to yourself? Did he not just tell you that it is you who is making yourself small? So small that you've isolated yourself from any assistance you could get. And you've allowed me, a non-weaver, to blow right past you. Hey, that's a low blow, she exclaims. He responds right back, yep, and you said it. But let's look at that. You had what, 3 weeks, maybe a month's head start on me, a non-weaver, and yet I passed you? How? She then tries to take the high road by saying, it's not a competition, Doug. Oh, now you use one of his admonishments. Please. Seriously, though, you had every advantage except one. I opened myself to get help, whereas you isolated yourself. Why can't you see this, Annie? There is no way I should have caught up to you, much less pass you. I know. All right, I know. I just get this, I don't know, urge to do things on my own. Like I don't want anyone else to touch it because it's mine. This challenge is turning me right back into the loner I was. And I know I need help, Doug. At that moment, you bloop back into your seat and look to Annie. Her eyes water as she says, Christos, I'm sorry. You were right. I can't do this on my own. You ponder a moment and then say, that's not what I said, Annie. You can do this on your own. I said you have assistance if you want it, but you have to choose to avail yourself of it. I forgive you. Now, how do you want to go about this? A lone tear finally makes its way down along the crease of her nose and into her mouth. She dabs her eyes with the cloth of her forearm and says, I don't want to do this alone or be small anymore. I know you were trying to help me, and I Doug interjects, slammed your door in the face, in his face. She gives him the shut up look and continues, I wasn't being receptive to it, even though you, Doug interjects again, were right about her. She then huffs out in exasperation, Doug! He answers with, you said you wanted help, so I'm helping. Slightly flustered, she says, that's not helping. It's needling. He smirks and responds, ha! That's priceless. The non-weaver is needling the weaver. Christos, you were right. Now that I found myself, I am weaving. And she just confirmed it. Sighing, you halt him. Doug. He raises his hand in surrender and says, I know, but this is just classic. Thanks, Annie. You made my day. She smirks and flippantly remarks, are you done? Can I finish? He gives a smirk of his own and needles further. That remains to be seen. She quickly leans towards him to give him a swat on the shoulder, only her hand freezes in mid-swing. Confusion written on her face, she pulls her hand back and looks to you. You ask, did he just stop you from hitting him? Tentatively, she responds, I don't know. I was going to, smack him on the shoulder like I always do when he's being a jerk. And my hand just stopped. You both turn and look in question at Doug, who has his own look of confused delight all over his face. In wonder, you ask him, did you do that? Like a kid who just tried out a cheat code in a video game and it worked. He tries to explain. I don't know. It was a natural reaction. I just thought of sticking my arm up to block her hand, and it felt like I did, only without either of these two arms, as he holds up his hands. You question him further. Did you do anything different than you normally do when she does that? He thinks for a moment and then begins thinking it out loud. I usually just cringe and try to pull away, which I started to do. And then, I don't know, I got this, feeling to relax and imagine what I wanted to happen, which was for her hand to stop. And then I could sense that it happened. You question more. So you didn't plan this or think about it ahead of time? Nope. It was all in the moment. When I accepted the feeling to relax, everything just seemed to slow down and I could see what I wanted to happen. And then it did. You ponder this to think and feel the answer. Still thinking it through, you state, you relaxed. And then it happened. Yep. I distinctly remember a sensation to relax and then accepting it. You think some more and then look to Annie and say, okay, Annie, go with me on this, okay? She nods, so you continue. I'm going to think something to you. When you get it, try to respond with whatever comes to you, okay? Again, she nods and says, okay. You pause for her to get ready, and then you think a question to her. You see her flinch, but no telepathic response comes to you. Okay, now you know what the question is. I'm going to think it again to you, but this time I want you to relax and imagine me getting your response. Nothing else matters but that. You good with that? She nods again and says, yes. Okay, here goes. And you think the question to her again. No! Resounds through your head in Annie's voice. Doug excitedly exclaims, it worked! I can see it on your face. You and Doug both look over to Annie, who now has tears streaming down her face. Only this time, it's accompanied with a huge grin of joy. She seems to have grown bigger, filling out her space more with her presence. Doug, in his own excited state, asks you, "What did you ask her?" You look to Annie, who thinks to you, "Go ahead, you tell him." You keep your gaze centered on her and respond, "I asked her, are you a small little girl?" Doug chuckles and says, "Wow, Christos, you sure have a way with women."
That's good. That was good. I kind of see myself in Annie sometimes.
I think we can see ourselves in all of these
Yeah,
characters.
this is true. Depending on who it is we're talking to and who it is we're, receiving from.
And the situation.
And the situation, yeah. Yeah, that's true, because sometimes you're very comfortable in a particular situation, but given another situation, you flip characters.
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, I kind of, from the beginning, wanted to think of myself as Christos. But there are times when I want to be Doug.
Yeah.
And there are even times when Annie, in her just flippant attitude, I want to be part of that.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't have to, I realize I don't have to choose just one.
No. Well, actually, all it's like your cast of characters inside yourself.
Yeah. Well, where do you think I pulled them from? Okay. The next one, and this is a short one. This one is entitled "Sticking Around for the Fireworks, a Talk with My Guide." Is victimhood just a state of mind? Yes. All experiences you will ever have stem from a state of your consciousness. Your state is the lens through which you view your world. And I have control over my state. You and no other. Okay, but what about the controllers here, the ones I'm a victim to? They are playing a role as controllers so that you can play the role of victim. You allow them to convince you that they are the bad guy controllers and you are the good guy victim. In another experience, you would be the bad guy controller to afford them the opportunity to be the good guy victims. Your memory is wiped so that you believe the role you are in. When your memory begins to return and you start asking questions as to why things are the way they are, that is your awakening that your current experience is ending and a new one is about to begin. Okay, so what purpose does the awakening serve? Why don't I just bloop to the new experience? The awakening serves as closure to the old and the start of the new. This is when you discard the old costume and all its accoutrements and start dressing up for your coming role by taking on knowledge and abilities that will shape your state of consciousness for your new role. Think of this as the Actors Guild after performance party, where the actors engage in conversation about how the performance went and prepare for their next gig. Many will lament that the play is over and refuse to let go until the very last moment before the next play. These people will have a hard time transitioning due to their sour state of consciousness. Others are more accepting and have already begun preparing and telling anyone who will listen about the adventures of the play ahead. And between those two perspectives, there's various states of consciousness. As for why you don't just bloop out, that is a matter of your intent, which perceives something to be gained from this event that will augment your coming experience. This is also when you get to determine where everyone is going next and who will be joining you to play a role in your next experience. Plus, who doesn't like a big party? And there's sure to be plenty of fireworks.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Yeah, it seems like that whole victim or sovereign has been bouncing around all over the place this week. Yeah.
Yep. We are all victims.
Mm-hmm.
You have to actually be a victim to play this game in this
Mm-hmm.
3D world. If you weren't a victim, you'd be a god somewhere. You'd be mastering
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yeah, and again, I think it is even in relation to topics like we just said about the roles. We bounce into whether we're Doug or Andy or Christos or based on kind of what the situation is, and that oftentimes that's the same case for victims. There's certain situations we don't see ourselves as victims; we see ourselves liberated, and another situation arises, and then we take the victim stance. So
Yep.
it's very interesting.
Yep. It is very interesting. Um, I keep thinking about growing up, and when I was at home with my older sister, younger brother,
Mm-hmm.
and um, my dad and my stepmom in one household, and what kind of the role that I played there, which was kind of like the mediator and kind of go between my younger brother and my older sister, and the one who got things done, just
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't like confrontation and whatnot. And then when I would go over my mom's, it would be my mom and my stepdad and my sister, my brother, and myself. My role kind of morphed. The mediator role wasn't as necessary because the the confrontation was different.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of afforded me a little bit different role. Then when I got outside, when I was at school, and even in
Mm-hmm.
school, depending on what group I was with, because I
Mm-hmm.
got along with all the groups. I was an
Yeah, me too.
athlete. We talked about this. I was
Yeah.
an athlete. When I was with the athletes, I played one role.
Yeah.
When I was with the heads, I played
Mm-hmm.
another role.
Mm-hmm.
When I was with the pop crowd, I played another role.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I mean, yes, there was common themes. I used humor here and there and whatever. I was more of a smart ass and whatnot. But it's amazing how the different roles. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we do that
Mm-hmm.
throughout our lives.
Yeah.
We play different roles depending on who you're with and what situation you're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus, yeah, a lot of it is you determine it, and then the kind of as you determine if you're going to be a victim or sovereign, you interact with others. If they want to be a victim and they try to put you in the perpetrator, because to have a victim, you have to have a perpetrator.
Right.
Then you choose: do you want to dance in that dance with that person and be the perpetrator, or are they going to lift themselves up to be on the level of the sovereign with you? It's very interesting when you look at it through that lens.
Yeah, it's funny watching. I did this too, so I'm not putting myself above anybody or whatnot. But watching other people say when they get into a confrontation with someone and they say, I don't want to hang out with them anymore. I don't want to be around them at all. But the next day, there they are, right back into it. And it's like,
Yeah,
yes, you do.
yeah,
That's the difference between what you say and your
yeah,
intent.
yeah.
You still want to play that role.
Mm-hmm.
Something inside you still wants to play that role. And
Mm-hmm.
so you keep coming back. If you didn't, you wouldn't
You may
go
go back
you
to
wouldn't
it.
go there. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we do that. We pull out and we say, okay, that's enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we go somewhere else. Well, all of that is coming online now. And everything is going to be kind of bubbling up and on display.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to you how you roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want something gone, then stop putting energy into it.
Stop playing with it.
That's it. That's as easy. But oftentimes we get pulled because there's something else
Mm-hmm.
pulling us into it.
Yeah.
Even though we're saying
Yeah, exactly.
so.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting the way things are shaping up right now.
Yeah, it is.
And that last description
Mm-hmm.
from my guide about the kind of after performance party
Mm-hmm.
kind of puts things in a little bit different light. It can
Yeah.
be as fun,
Mm-hmm.
or I was thinking about all the people who are going, oh man, the way my role got cut off and the way they did this, I should have had her role, or I should have been able to do that. And
Yeah.
just all the, there's always going to be people that are bitching and moaning about what they didn't get to do or how their role didn't get to play out or
Mhm.
whatnot. And we all do it. All of us do it.
Mhm.
But I'm just thinking about this big party that we're
Yeah.
now in.
Mhm.
It's, I mean, it's just now forming because we've been in seclusion. We've all been going to get all gussied up, ready for the
Mhm.
party.
Yeah.
And now people are gonna come to the party and display their wares.
Mhm. It makes me think of, a lot of times when there is a play, a production, afterwards, the actors and actresses, like at the local theater here, they'll go out afterwards to this little place nearby the theater, and they'll all sit together and laugh and you know talk about each other's performances, and it's a jovial time, a celebration time for them. But they had accepted their roles, so they auditioned and accepted their roles. And so if you can get, and the way I feel like is if we're going to get to where we accepted the roles that we played, we'll be able to be in that jovial kind of
Right.
experience.
Plus, you're talking about a
Yeah.
much smaller, tighter
Yes.
knit group.
Yes. Hmm.
Do this globally for the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
species,
That's true.
and you're going to have every gamut. I mean, the full gamut
Hmm.
of responses and roles and
Hmm.
complaints and joys and
Yeah.
all everything in between.
Yeah, because we each have our own interpretation of the
Yep.
play that was played or the story that was told.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Very interesting. Thank you, honey.
You're welcome. That was that was fun. That was enjoyable to write.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had to. That when at the beginning of it, I was kind of, because I was struggling with the victimhood thing, because right at the beginning it was saying I was a victim, and I'm like,
Mm.
no one likes to hear they're a victim.
No.
No one. I don't care who you are. No one wants to hear it. I needed to hear it, and it took me those first 3 or 4 pages took me the longest to write.
Yeah.
Then once I broke through that and finished it, then the dialogue with Christos, Annie, and Doug came through, and that just kind of rolled right along. And then I got the last one about victimhood, and it was a different flavor. It was almost
Felt
like
different.
and it was almost like joyous. It was kind
Yeah.
of like, hey, you can look forward to this, or you can dread it. It's up to you.
Yeah, it felt very different. Yeah. Yeah, they get a rise out of anybody. You just call them a victim.
Yeah.
They'll fight you.
It got a rise out of me.
Yeah.
I didn't like it,
They
but
get
that's
you.
that's what was coming through, and
Yeah.
so I had to find a way to face it, because the writing wasn't coming. I
Mhm.
was grappling with it,
Mhm.
and then I kept coming back to it, kept coming back to it, and then finally, I just said, okay, let's see where this goes. Okay, I can see, from a particular standpoint, I can see I am attached to this, because if I wasn't attached, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
So okay, everyone who's attached to this
Mhm.
system and is in existence here in this 3D world is somehow they've agreed to be a victim. And I realized, okay, yeah, okay, I did agree to be a victim. Okay,
Mhm.
I can see that. And
Mhm.
then once I did, the rest of it just kind of
Mhm. Awesome.
flowed right out. So
Excellent. Okay.
mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, we announced last time we had a blog. So, but if in case this is the first time you're watching one of these, we do have a blog that has all the transcripts of all the episodes. This is episode 20.
Yep.
Yeah, episode 20. So we
Yep.
have up through episode 17 on the blog, but it'll come soon. The other episodes will. So
Yeah, and that the link to that will be in the description. It's stardragonbrew.wix site, wixsite.com/blog.
mhm.
It's pretty simple. There, all it is just
Right.
just these episodes. So
Mhm.
you can scroll down, or you can click. There's a little button right at the top that says "Start with episode 1." You can click on that; it'll automatically open up as episode 1, so you won't have to scroll all the way to the
Mhm.
bottom.
Yeah.
And enjoy. I mean,
Mhm.
It's free. It's all there. All the episodes are there up to, like you said, up to 17 and 18 and 19
They're coming
will
soon.
will be here soon. So you can read it at your leisure. It's there. We've already put it all up. So have fun. I just went back and read it. Started with episode 1 and started reading again. I got up to episode 12, and that's what I was doing when I got stuck. I went back and read the first 12 episodes, and they're short reads.
Yeah,
Each one takes no more than like
10 minutes or something.
yeah, 10, 20. Even the longest one I don't think takes more than like 25 minutes. So enjoy.
Enjoy. Bye, everybody.
See ya.